It's like the day of launch was the day that the entire development team could take a fortnight off and go and lie on a beach. It's like there is so much content on that platform that would never see the light of day in the proper official games industry, because it is other players following their passion and doing what inspires them. And it's crazy. And in some cases it sucks. And in some cases it still gets millions of players, but it sucks from every conceivable angle, apart from the fact that millions of people like it. So I'm in the wrong. But similarly, I absolutely see where you're coming from. It's like when you democratize game development to the point where anybody with the slightest desire to go and build something can do so simply and for free, it goes in all of these incredibly unexpected ways. And again, as a player, I have seen some of the most egregious monetization that you could imagine. It's like there are bits in there where you look at something and it starts to unlock, or it pops up a menu, a dialogue that says, okay, you're looking at me, you need to pay Roblox. And it's like, no, this is not a good user experience. So we have this Wild West experience out there, which I think is going to mature. My 9-year-old is now learning lore from the early days of Roblox, from the YouTubers who were doing it back in 2008, 9, 10. And it's great. I know all about, John Shidletsky. I know all about the great Roblox hack of 2012. He wasn't even alive then. It's crazy. So we're in uncharted territory. But I think this really does start to, I guess, ground everything that you've been talking about in terms of when you give people the capabilities, when you have anybody who has the desire to make a game out there able to make a game, and then monetize it in a way which makes sense to them and connect with their players. It's like, dude, I've done admin abuses with Jandel. I am on the cutting edge in terms of the games industry. How do we get the rest of the games industry to even pay attention to this? Because at the moment, it seems to be only the people who are either A, parents, or B, working in areas like you that are even looking at this, let alone giving it any kind of dedicated attention.
Everybody in the game industry has to sit down and just understand Roblox. So you don't have if you have a kid, they'll show you Roblox. They're almost undoubtedly in it. So have them show you. And if you don't have that, figure it out on your own, how to get in there and just mess around. Because I think it is important to understand. I think the lesson for the broader game industry is you can make really compelling experiences that are not necessarily $100 million, $200 million production budgets driven by, the most advanced 3D graphics content. I love those games as much as any hardcore gamer. I've been playing them for years. But that's not the thing that defines the entirety of the game industry. Actually, mobile shouldn't have done it, right? Because mobile is half or slightly more than half of the game industry's revenue at this point. And most of them don't have super advanced 3D graphics. So being able to understand that there's a lot of opportunities there, and that some of those opportunities are being unlocked because individual creators are starting to make things that would not have otherwise be considered commercially viable is part of it. So I think part of that is get your team sizes optimal, get them down to a size that focuses on creativity and the fun factor. And you'll actually unlock more possibilities when you do that, because now you've got a team that can actually take more risks. Give a smaller team more runway so that they can take more risks in these massive teams. The other thing that I think is just important for people to think about is how do you unlock, I'll just call it co-creation with your player population. And anytime that people can create within the game and share with their friends, we call this I don't really love the term UGC, user generated content. I think it comes more from websites than it does games, but for better or worse, we have this term UGC. I think if you can incorporate that and make it core to your game and your player community, that's a powerful force multiplier as well. But it comes down to, how do you have the social mechanics? How do you create the kind of content in a game that's shareable and customizable for players? So the more you can do that, that's, I think, another lesson from Roblox, which is the more you can unlock that, the more you can really open up possibility for you in the market overall. There was this research that was recently put out by Matt Ball just a couple of weeks ago. He did a really interesting deck on the whole game industry, just showing that kind of Roblox was eating up the growth of the game industry. So we look at the game industry as a whole is growing, but not if you subtract Roblox from it. So one way to look at that is a lot of the traditional games that you and I built and also grew up with, those are actually declining overall relative to Roblox being such a big growth driver. Now, I didn't even think about this until this moment in time, but one of the things I want to try to figure out now is, okay, but what if we divide the industry overall between co-creative communities where the players have a role in that versus not? I suspect that if I put Roblox along with Minecraft, Ark Survival, like all these other games that have a lot of like dynamic content creation, I bet that's the growing part of the industry, even without Roblox.
We can have all these different types of games and gameplay. They wouldn't have made it as a game, but we're just wanting to see what's possible, what flies, what fails. There's no risk or feeling that failure will be a bad thing because the community is such a big part of it. Yeah. So it would be co-creation with the community has it maybe over just doing it because you think you know what the community wants.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me just kind of bring it all back together here, though, which is like Skillz and Beamable and what are we trying to do? So it's ultimately about putting power in the hands of creators and maximizing that creativity, unlocking a lot of the things that were historically complex around monetization, around super scalable social communities in your game. Now, for us, our primary market, like really our only market today, is the developers who sit down and think of themselves as quote unquote game developers, meaning they use Unity, they use Unreal, or they use like an HTML-based game engine for the web. We're not targeting Roblox developers, like they're doing their own thing and by all accounts doing a really good job at it. So where we can help is people that have a vision for games in that traditional vein, but where they can add to it either the right LiveOps, live services, social systems, monetization systems, and really have a successful game that can compete in today's world. So we kind of see Unity and Unreal and even the web-based engines in a certain way, they've got to compete with Roblox. So how do we arm all of you, our friends who we have grown up with here as game developers? How do we arm you with those tools that are now so easy for Roblox builders to access?
Yeah.
We'll give you those same tools. Unlike Roblox, we're not going to take 70 or 80%, whatever, to sit the top line and tap your revenue. Great if you're a 14-year-old kid who made a game and shipped it, but for a commercial studio, those economics aren't going to work. Nope. So, we're here about maximizing creative output, creative flourishing. In a sense, we're co-creating with you the game where you're the creator and we're just a technology provider. We arm you with the platform to make it all possible. And the first stage of that in the market were the 3D engines, right? Like there was a time at which you mentioned it early at the beginning of this program, you had to build your own 3D engine. You'd sit there with DirectX and you'd be like, okay, I've got the primitives for graphics and now I build the 3D engine. Or you could even go beyond before that and be like, there was actually a time when there was no even graphics APIs and you had to like write assembly code to do your graphics and rasterization and all of that. But along came 3D engines, Unreal and Unity were the two that kind of won that war. There are still others, but they kind of occupied that place 10, 15 years ago where they emerged as the winners. And that solved an enormous number of problems for developers. Look at the output of 3D graphics games before and after the emergence of 3D engines. Now you had people who could build their creative vision without having to first sit down and invent a 3D engine to even get there. Kind of the same for multi-user online live services driven games, where now, similar to that emergence of the 3D engine, you have backend tech that similarly unlocks that same creativity where you don't have to build all of this infrastructure. You can just build your multiplayer game, whether it's immersive, whether it's asynchronous, all of that. It's just at your disposal. And now this year, with everything that's happening in terms of like coding assistance and things that are helping to speed up like a lot of the technical parts of game development, like everything's converging together. And I just really believe that game development it's already a creative industry, but it is going to become almost exclusively creative in the future, meaning you bring your imagination and then you just start imagining and going direct to the screen with your idea, as opposed to all of these bottlenecks that we've had in the past.
That's the nature of it because of that creativity. It's like an evolution because you said yourself before it was thinking about the back end. Now with something, when I think about Skillz and Beamable together, it's like, no, now we have the platform that takes care of gaming as a business because it is. You have to think about LiveOps, monetization, identity, these things. And so it becomes a strategic advantage so that everyone can be doing this. I think that's what we're talking about here is you put it in a way yourself, Jon, the democratization of the tools, of the platform, of everything, so that then partnership no longer becomes a trade-off. You're not losing control if you don't own the stack. You're actually gaining advantage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's right. You gotta focus on creativity. And the other advantage we bring too is like, imagine building it yourself. We have the advantage of working with zillions of developers and learning about the problems that they all face, doing the pattern recognition and building that into software. I mean, that's historically the advantage a software company has over custom development, which is you have all of this learning that happens in a marketplace of every developer sharing a common set of problems. And we can incorporate and then crystallize that learning into the software that you build on top of it so that you can go off and solve the things that are the differentiators for your game, which is the fun.
It just becomes part of the tech stack. It's you don't have to go out and build your own game engine anymore. You don't have to go out and build your own back end anymore. You don't have to worry necessarily about your live operations. We know that AI is coming down the pipeline, and at some point is going to be part of your tech stack. It's going to be part of the engine. It's going to be part of the service that you're using. But I just want to touch on that lightly, if we can, Jon, which is we can't not mention AI. It's been everywhere. So where do you see that impacting LiveOps? Where do you see that impacting what it is that Beamable and Skillz are offering? Can you tell us anything?
I think it comes down to it's part of this direct from imagination to the screen era that we're now in. So AI is helpful in coding. Like it's called vibe coding a year ago. It's kind of evolved a lot since then. I think a lot of us are now calling it agentic engineering. I just call it English language programming, where the language model is essentially becoming what compilers used to be. So the compiler would turn your high-level language into machine code. Now we're going to have a 3-level process in which there's English language driving the formation of high-level languages that then get compiled. And it's going to change and accelerate software development a lot in terms of how you code those pieces, but it gets you to a place where a lot of the features are now going to be something that you control through that process and build your game a lot faster. Again, going from that imagination to implementation, going from intention to implementation so much faster. Now, what do you need to do that? Well, you're not going to vibe code your 3D engine from the ground up. You're going to use off-the-shelf technology. Even if you vibe code a web-based game, you're going to use 3JS or something. The 3D engine problem is solved, right? So similarly for the backend, you're going to use backend components and tech that's proven to scale that you can build on top of. We see that feature coming, and being infrastructure that supports this direction imagination era is just critical for everybody. So I just think that there's going to be more and more people who are going to go and just be extremely creative, get to product much faster, get to try a lot of fun things in their game much more quickly, try a wider variety of things, try it with your audiences. That's where we're going, a much more rapid implementation process, and also the ability to experiment a lot more, which is very exciting. But there's things you don't want to experiment with. Like, you don't want to experiment with whether your game backend is going to scale to a commercially relevant number of customers, right? So that's where you got to build on top of a foundation that you can trust, so that all of these creative investments and ideation you're doing are not going to waste.
It's the plumbing. You don't want, creative and wonderful people necessarily installing the plumbing in your home. It has to be the infrastructure is the infrastructure, because everything else relies upon that. So yeah, a good point, really well made.
And it's the differentiation as well, Brian, going
Mm-hmm.
ahead. I mean, if we can all make games, and maybe that's, me included at some point, the tools are there, the platform's there, then it's really about unlocking that. That's what's important. I'm just curious, because I was reading about this and I didn't know if this was news or if this was something that you're going to be building on also at Beamable's in the back end services, because now, of course, being together with Skillz, you're focused on more AI native tooling. I mean, what is that? Just so our audience can follow here and understand what's a little bit more about what's coming.
Yeah, we haven't made any specific announcements about that yet, but I think you can tell from what I shared that we certainly see what's happening in the marketplace. Every software company is, and the way software is being coded, developed, orchestrated, that's undergoing an enormous amount of change. It includes essentially, again, English becoming the language. English, whether that's how you query systems and learn about them through natural language, but also English as the thing that drives a certain amount of the software engineering, or at least feature design and prototyping within a game. So we see that just like the rest of the world is seeing it, but we also intend to be a big part of it by being the infrastructure that these systems trust. So if you look at who the winners are in the current round of what we'll call agentic engineering, it's the bulletproof infrastructure that agentic processes then build software around. So who's winning? It's infrastructure companies, it's databases that people can trust. It's a lot of that stuff that's down at the plumbing level. And games have very unique technical architectures because they tend to have 3D engines on the front end. They tend to be real-time, synchronous, persistent, stateful as opposed to stateless. So like, there's a lot of things that make the technical architecture of games very different than a lot of other things that you see, which is why also like AI has kind of produced more at the toy level so far on games, whereas it's really starting to totally disrupt the software as a service market, for example.
Yeah.
It's going to take longer in games because of the lack of training materials that the AI can train off of, and this sort of the unique and weird world of the game developer tech stack that we live in. But it will catch up, and it's going to change, and we're going to be the infrastructure company that helps you get there, because you have to have infrastructure that works, has to scale, it has to be trustable, especially when you're talking about monetization systems. Like, you got to be able to trust the monetization engines that are present in your game that you're going to build around. So that's what we can do at Skillz, is we can be that trusted partner for everything from the monetization in your game down to what you call the plumbing, the infrastructure, the things that make everything possible and make it possible to build something big. So AI, of course, is going to affect everything in the world. I mean, we're talking about civilizational, if not species level change underway here with artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
So I would just say everybody take it seriously and be in learning mode, see what these things can do. Just as I am, if you follow me in social media, you see me posting about AI, agentic technologies every day. Like, you better be learning this stuff because it's happening so fast that you want to be well equipped with it instead of being disarmed by it.
That's exactly it. It is coming, whether you like it or not. You just need to be aware of what's going on and prepared for it. We hear that so often, Peggy, don't we?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, the highest level answer I can give to your question, though, is it all comes down to this idea of direct from imagination. How do we get you there faster so you have an idea for a game, you get it on the screen fast. Once it's on the screen, you run it as a business, and we let you keep shipping content, engaging your audiences, managing it as a business, because games is a business now. Games isn't just ship a product and walk away and hope the checks flow in. That's the way it was 30 years ago, right? Now it's a services business. And that is a very different mindset than it used to be. And I'm probably preaching the choir. Most game developers know this at this point, but like, we got to make that easier for you. So get there fast, and run it fast.
We're not teaching this. We're teaching people how to make products, especially here in Scotland and the UK. We're still focused on the discs in boxes on shelves in stores. You know,
the gold disc, the gold CD.
Oh yeah. And then I get to take 2 weeks off. But it's absolutely fascinating, and it's so refreshing to hear from somebody who's working directly at kind of the cutting edge and essentially productizing the infrastructure, because that's what takes us forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
it's a fun time. It's a fun time to be alive and be building these things and really just multiplying exponential creativity. That's what I see my job as. Which, by doing the boring piece, by the way, well, I don't want to make it sound too boring. It's really actually very interesting to figure out how to make tech work for like millions of users. But if you're at a game studio, it's kind of the boring piece, especially when you're just ending up creating things that ultimately becomes continuous tech debt. That's no fun at all. No one wants to do that. So we're doing the part that would be boring for you. It's fun for us. And it's necessary.
Yes. And empowering. I'm thinking the whole time about it, how empowering it is. Now, we started with the news. So I like to end with the news again. We're whatever you're willing to reveal. You know, we're in the run up to GDC. I've read it's a phased integration. Updates will be rolling out. So without giving away too much, right? We know that developers have something to look forward to because they will be able to do more trusted infrastructure, strong, robust back end. But what should they be looking for? Can you maybe just tell me a little bit of what we might see first, or what they might, or what you're excited about, Jon? I mean, this is your baby. What are you excited about?
I'm excited about the 1 + 1 = 3 that's here. Like, first of all, Skillz has an amazing stable of developers. I actually had one of them on my live stream just last week, Justin from ePlay. Like, I think that would give people a real flavor for like the kind of people who are building on Skillz. And these are really creative people who actually have gone pretty rapidly from imagination of an idea to a successful online business, because what Skillz unlocked was this very unique cash gaming architecture that other people have tried to copy, but they didn't do it fairly, right? Like, so I think what Skillz has done is they made it possible and they did it fair. Like, you can trust the platform, which means you as the player can trust it, and therefore you as the developer can trust it as well. Hard to pull off trust in today's world, especially with technology. So they did that well, and I'm excited about trying to educate the Beamable developer community about incorporating that element into their game, or maybe thinking about the next game you build is going to use that, vice versa. We have all this wealth of competitive, cooperative content updates, like just being able to do more events within Skillz games. For example, you talked about the power of events and regular updates to your game. Like, we make that so easy. You can imagine applying that to many of the games that are running in Skillz already, and suddenly you drive that added level of engagement and re-engagement that we have found so successful over time. So we have all kinds of ideas that we'll share in the future around all kinds of stuff that's like the next level ideas for developers. But our intention here is to build the definitive backend live services technology. And of course, that includes monetization and social systems and whatnot. But like the very most immediate thing is how do we bring this collection of capabilities together and unlock it for the widest set of developers? And we're just sprinting to that right now.
It is very exciting, Jon. Absolutely. And we'll be watching that because this will come out bit by bit. But let's say we're sitting here a year from now, and I would hope we do. Right, Brian? We have him back. Absolutely. Without question. If he wants to come back, and I would hope so. What would be something you want to tell me about? Something that's really, really visibly different for studios building on this combined platform?
I think that the joy for me would come from if you look at our population of developers and our average developers, and then you compare that to the market at large, that our developers are just killing the competition because they're so creative. They're
Wow.
building sustainable businesses. Like they've really unlocked the business model within gaming of live services. So we just want to equip and arm our developers to be successful. And I want to be able to measure that and show the world how much more successful they are than having done otherwise. And I think that we have a lot of the ingredients in the box, particularly if we combine them. Skillz is a very inherently competitive company. It's kind of my place to be now. So this is great. We're just gonna bring that competition not only to the games people are playing at Skillz, but to the developers as well, so they can win.
I
Because
love that.
this is such a hard business. It's hard to win in this business. So
Yeah.
we can do anything that nudges you towards success. That's what I want. And I want to quantify it and prove it.
Excellent. I'll be at GDC, so I'll be speaking to some of these developers. And I think also, Brian, bringing a couple back here is not a bad idea because whatever they're doing to win in this competitive and difficult market is worth sharing with our
We've
audience.
got to hear from the front line. We've got to hear from the front line. So yes, absolutely. And we'll take you up on that. And as soon as you discover, it's like how the UGC side of the sector is stacking up. Jon, we want you back on. Absolutely. So we could keep going. I wish we could keep going, but sadly, we have run out of time. So before we let you go, we have two questions we asked all of our guests. The first is, what are you playing right now? What are you enjoying? What's soaking up more of your time than it perhaps should? And then the second one is really simple. Ultimate game of all time.
So first of all, when I first started at Skillz, I was doing two things. One is I've been experimenting with all of these agentic coding platforms the whole time. So I started playing a lot of the Skillz games and got really hooked on one of their most popular games is a solitaire game called Solitaire Cube. So I wanted to I had discovered, by the way, I'm not a very good solitaire player. That was very painfully apparent quickly, and to play it more competitively. It's like, how do I get better at this? I want to crack the code on the optimal gameplay. So I actually turned it into a project I used Claude Code to build effectively a clone, because I found that by building the game, I would learn how to play it. And then I trained a neural network to figure out how to play it effectively and teach me how to play better. So anyway, that was a fun project. So I've been playing a lot of those games. But if you're going to ask me what my favorite game of all time is, I just love Baldur's Gate 3. I think it's an absolutely phenomenal game. I'm a Dungeons and Dragons player from the age of 9. And they really brought Dungeons and Dragons together really well, and just beautifully crafted narrative and storytelling. That's my favorite game. And I have many favorite games, but that's the favorite of favorites.
Oh, listen, there is a reason they had to buy a bigger office to accommodate all of the trophies and awards. So, that's a good choice. That's a good choice. Well, with that, I think we have to draw things to a close. Jon, it has been an absolute delight, a total blast. And I know I've learned a lot, so I'm sure our listeners will have too. Peggy, any last thoughts?
Just that I'm blown away, actually. And I'm looking forward because I have the opportunity to meet Jon in person next week at GD. Now I am all the more excited about that. Before it's like, yeah, OG, I get it. But no, Jon, I really would be my pleasure because you're one of the people we will say, who unlocked all of this creativity, because that's what's happening. This is a creative industry. It's all within us, but we need the tools. We need to be empowered. So yeah, you're a pioneer in that in many ways. I'll be so excited to meet you in person.
Thanks, Cindy. I'm looking forward to it too.
This show is all about how to do your job better, how to make an amazing game, how to market it, and you have a say. So if you have a story or know someone we need to shine a light on, then we would love to hear from you.
We want to hear from you. We want to reflect the reality of the mobile games market in all its wonderful complexity and strangeness. So if you have any suggestions for us, if you have any feedback for us, you can always get in touch. You can email us at podcast@PocketGamer.biz. You can find us on Twitter @PGBiz, and you can reach out to us through the PocketGamer.biz website. If you're interested in listening to all of our podcasts, you can find them at PocketGamer.biz/podcast, and we would love to hear your thoughts on future shows.
And we've got you covered on all the major platforms, so subscribe to the audio podcast, as Brian said. Look for us on YouTube. If you want to read it, hey, you can do that too, because we have a companion post for you as well on the PocketGamer.biz website.
Tune in again for the next edition of the PocketGamer.biz podcast, and we look forward to speaking to you in the near future.